Our boy Luigi Mangione is being perp walked. Okay? Which I think is crazy.
Muffler.
Look at this. Luigi Mangione arrives in New York surrounded by a large group of police and the crooked mayor, Eric Adams. This is clearly a PR stunt by the state to intimidate those who express support for Luigi and quell the rebellion he sparked. It won't work. Now, I don't think he sparked a rebellion, okay? But I think people notice the contradictions a little bit harder.
Account of federal murder through use of a firearm, a firearms offense as well for using a silencer and muffler in the alleged murder, as well as 2 stalking charges as well. His newly retained attorney, Karen Agnifilo,
the New York District Attorney
the
suggested that
Alicia
federal
Miller video
charges
as well.
in this case would be overkill. I just want to note, you see New York City Mayor Eric Adams.
Like, what did they think was going to happen? Is he just going to, like, did they think that he was an incredibly powerful supervillain? Like, they're treating him like they're slamming him in Arkham Asylum or some shit. It doesn't make any sense. Like, what are they doing? They're making it seem like he's the Joker, dude. What the hell is this? This is like, I mean, this is a bit overkill, I think, you know? We got him, the greatest villain. We got him, the greatest villain of all time.
Was not far behind Mangione there. Again, a very large law enforcement presence. This was
I mean, this is cool as fuck, by the way. He looks so goddamn cool in this. Like, it's not even funny. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. He looks cool as hell, dude. He looks so fucking cool.
Incident that sparked worldwide attention as Mangione was able to get away soon after the murder, clearly in what was a calculated move, as well as investigators finding key details in the search for him. That book bag in Central Park full of Monopoly money. One interesting detail. I believe Bryn Gingras is still account of federal murder.
Like, this is crazy. You know who else was per walk? Jesus. They're making him look sick as fuck. Look at these flicks. Yeah. I saw this. Like, this is crazy. This is a crazy photo.
Murder through use of a firearm, a firearms offense as well for using a silencer and muffler.
This is a crazy fucking photo, man. I mean, this shit is wild. What? Read logs when you get a chance. Don't want to bother. Okay. Dude. You are not being the most respectful chatter if you keep spamming it over and over again. The Morning Start Foundation funds birthright to Israel. That's why I was like, what the fuck? Not trying to be Alex Jones on the left, though. The Bar Freyung, which was giving grants to the PYM, is founded by the Morning Star Foundation, which gave a grant to $825,000 to Birthright Israel. As the Bar Freyung Foundation gave $20,000 to the Palestinian youth movement. I'm trying to be like schizophrenic. You are being schizophrenic. I have no idea what you're saying. I don't know. You can't say hashtag most respectful chatter while you're just like, it's becoming a common meme in this community. Whenever someone goes, oh, I'm not trying to spam, I'm trying to be respectful, but like, please, can you look at this like hyperfixation I got going on when you're talking about something entirely different? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what it is. Okay. But no, I don't think that it's like, I don't think the Palestinian youth movement is, I don't even know what you're talking about when you said the Palestinian youth movement, but is it like some shit in Germany? I don't know. I don't know what the fuck it is going on. Oh. It seems that our MAGA communist pal Jackson Hinkle has met some difficulties expanding his business to China. Both his accounts on Chinese social media platforms are currently censored and emptied. I don't know what happened. Maybe the Chinese government was like, maybe the Chinese government is a little suspicious of our brave comrade Jackson Hinkle in the same ways that I am, really. Considering the fantastic amount of surveillance that the Chinese state has over American assets and even Chinese assets in America, maybe they sniffed something out. I don't know. This pic of Luigi from today is so sexy. Okay, you guys need to stop thirsting over Luigi Mangione. I'm just kidding. You don't have to stop thirsting, but it is just like funny that it kind of takes away from the whole point. I don't know what the fuck they think they're doing. If anything, it's just going to inspire more copycats. Anyway. Yeah, America. Luigi is a terrorist. Netanyahu, not a terrorist. That's a good point. But look, the point is this. It's very obvious. It's very obvious that they are, trying to make a very clear example saying nobody should touch this. Nobody should touch this person. Nobody should promote this person. Nobody should support this person. This person is bad. And they keep repeating it over and over again. He's bad. He's bad. He's bad. He's bad. He's bad. He's bad. You should feel bad. You should feel bad. He's bad and you should feel bad. And it's very obvious that it's, to a certain degree, if you're over the age of, if you're over the age of like 40, it might be working. But if you're under the age of 40, I don't think it's working. You know what I mean? And for that, I need you to understand, I'm not saying that like every single person over the age of 40 is automatically like Luigi Mangione is a terrorist, criminal, evil person. He needs to die or whatever. I'm just simply saying that there are probably more people that get primed by media in general, mainstream media. They happen to be over the age of 40. And those are, that is the demographic that is going to be more malleable to this kind of, more susceptible to this kind of very obvious, very deliberate putting your finger on the scale situation in an effort to try and get people to be more antagonistic towards Luigi Mangione, his actions, and the like. Kyle Rittenhouse walks a free man, but Luigi needs 30 cops from a dozen departments to be transferred. Yeah. Yeah. Low. Did Tamazia send a playlist today? I didn't catch it. But yeah, we have the Nick Fuentes thing. Don't worry. I have the Nick Fuentes clip ready to go as well. Oh, he did. Of course he did. Police. All right, the Macy's. Thank you for the playlist. All right, let's get started on Luigi Mangione facing federal charges, including stalking and murder. They're hitting federal charges on our boy. They're hitting the book from every angle. Why are older people more gullible to authority? Am I being ageist, or do they generally protect hierarchies because they're recipients of some privilege? That's one role. That plays a role in it. I think that they probably have more confidence in the institutions, given that they had more privilege in their upbringing. On top of that, I would say that they're just more reactionary, more law and order minded without thinking about what that Like if you look at crime as a black and white thing, right? Then yeah, what Luigi did is a crime. Dead to rights. You know, you just fucking murder somebody. So many people are just gonna be like, nah, that's murder. You know? And for them, they could potentially understand crime and punishment when it's someone that they do like Donald Trump, right? But there were still plenty of boomers who were just like, I'll never vote for a felon. You know what I mean? Yeah, they're a vulnerable demographic that favors stability, for sure. They also do not have a diverse media diet in general. And when you don't have a diverse media diet in general, you are infinitely more susceptible to mainstream institutions. You will get your notes from the TV man, and you will repeat those positions.
Say he brazenly gunned down a healthcare CEO on the streets of New York City, and now accused killer Luigi Mangione is facing federal murder charges. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. This afternoon, Luigi Mangione will appear in a federal courtroom in Manhattan. A federal indictment was just unsealed. Mangione now faces 4 counts of stalking, murder through the use of a firearm, and a firearms.
He looks hot.
Offense involving a silencer. Mangione landing in New York after waiving extradition from Pennsylvania, where he was arrested after days on the lam. Videos capture the 26-year-old's transport earlier today, first driven to an airport in Altoona before being loaded onto a small plane to New York. A swath of security in tow the entire time, and Mangione.
No fucking way he's mewing. Oh my God, he's mewing. Bro, stop.
Earlier today, first driven to an airport in Altoona.
This is what happens when you got a Zoomer killer, dude. The health insurance CEO killer is a fucking Zoomer. So of course he's mewing. That's crazy.
Altoona before being loaded onto a small plane to New York. A swath of security in.
That's crazy. He's just like.
The entire time, and Mangione clad in shackles. The accused killer also facing first and second degree murder charges in New York City related to that Midtown Manhattan killing of Brian Thompson during the early morning hours of December 4th. Sources now telling us that the expected federal charges that await could make Mangione eligible for the death penalty. Let's bring in our legal contributor and trial attorney, Brian Buckmeyer.
Yeah, let's kill the guy. Fuck it, dude. Yeah. Great stuff, man. Great. Throw the book at him. Throw the book! Throw the book at him! How dare he! I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. It's like Luigi Mangione. Dude, you can get away with so much cruelty if you subject vulnerable people to said cruelty rather than someone in a position of power. Like, analyze and interpret the way that this case is unfolding, okay, versus any number of different incidents that take place in the United States of America on a daily basis, okay? We are a very violent nation. We are a very violent country. There are thousands of murders that take place every year in the United States of America. There are plenty of instances where we have seen high-profile cases of vigilante justice where the person is not even punished but celebrated as a hero. But when you do this to a person of worth, a person of means, a person of wealth, the only people that deserve personhood in American society, you get the book thrown at you, federal charges, terrorism charges, fuck it. And I think when people look at this and like if you're a person who reads the root.com or whatever, right? Like, how do you not see this? How do you not recognize that, like, obviously this is a white guy, okay? Now interpret the way that they're throwing the book at this motherfucker as opposed to the likes of George Zimmerman. You know what I mean? Or Daniel Penny. Or Daniel Perry. Wasn't it Daniel Perry in Texas? Or was the victim's name Daniel Perry? No, it was, yeah. Daniel Perry was pardoned by the Texas governor for going to a BLM rally and like shooting and killing one of the Black Lives Matter protesters. Daniel Perry was convicted of murder and the death of Garrett Foster, but was later pardoned by the governor. Daniel Penny in New York killed a homeless person in a subway in a subway car. Kyle Rittenhouse. Think about that. Yeah. Daniel Perry killed the caretaker and boyfriend of a quadriplegic woman. Garrett Foster was wheeling his girlfriend, who was quadriplegic, at the Black Lives Matter rally. And as a veteran, he was armed in an open carry state. Daniel Perry, who is a pedophile as well as a murderer, had previously openly fantasized about murdering BLM protesters. He texted prior to him trying to drive into a crowd of BLM protesters. He had texted his friends saying, I'm going to go to a BLM protest and I'm going to kill people. And that's exactly what he did. He rolled up to a bunch of BLM protesters who were peacefully walking through the streets, and he tried driving into the crowd. And as Garrett Foster approached him, in the midst of like wheeling away his quadriplegic wife, he walked up to the car and Daniel Perry opened fire on him and killed him. He was convicted in a Texas court. Do you understand? Like, jury of his peers in Texas looked at this man and said, nah, dog, you're a racist murderer. Too much for us. And the governor of Texas, Governor Greg Abbott, turned around and pardoned him. Think about that. Think about that. Look at the analysis here. Look at the interpretation of who gets to be killed and who gets to do the killing in American society. Okay? That's it. That's it. Now compare that to the reception of Luigi Mangione.
By phone. So, Brian, I guess let's first start with Mangione's arraignment today. What can we expect?
Mangione is going to be doing an arraignment, which is an initial appearance before a criminal court, where he gets to hear the charges as you've outlined in the federal case. And then the judge will decide as to whether or not bail should be set. But considering the nature of the charges, I would assume that he would be denied bail and be remanded as the case then progresses. The next question would be is when and if he's going to show up in a Manhattan courthouse to then hear these state charges.
Got it. All right. So let's just talk about the state and federal charges here and the federal side of things and how that could make him, he could face the death penalty, right?
Absolutely. So in the state of New York, there is no death penalty. The highest charge of murder in the first degree, which he faces in state court, has a penalty of life without the possibility of parole. That's the highest sentence we have in the state. But in the federal court system, they do have the possibility of the death penalty. But we will know that far in advance of any type of trial because the government will have to make some sort of notification that they are seeking the death penalty. So while it is a possibility, we don't know if that's the actual sentence that the government will be seeking at this point in time.
All right, so Mangione's lawyer is now calling the federal charges a pile-on. We first knew about what he faced in state court, but now we're hearing about these federal charges. The lawyer's saying that it raises concerns of double jeopardy. Is he right?
So no, and I think currently Luigi Mangione's attorney is Karen Friedman Agnifilo. So I don't believe she's right in the sense of double jeopardy. Double jeopardy is when someone is tried for a case twice, not when they're charged for the same incident. We've seen cases like this when it comes to, for example, law enforcement officers that kill individuals being charged in both state and federal court. So that is possible, but I do share the sentiments, and I think most defense attorneys would, that it is somewhat of a...
This is pretty crazy. This is... I think this is unprecedented. I don't know. Like it's understandable that there's so much media attention on this, but I think that not only the media attention, but the widespread positive reception to Luigi Mangione's actions has completely broken the brains of those in positions of power, and they're desperately trying to make an example. And I don't know. I feel like this much aggressive over prosecution, it makes me feel, I mean, it makes me feel like it's overkill. And I feel like it might have the capacity this doesn't make me feel frightened, but I wonder if this would actually cause people to think about this a little differently. Like in the sense that, like, I wonder if this would make people go, it is kind of wild how much, how much they are emphasizing how bad of a guy this is. Like, I feel like this would create a little bit of blowback. Like, in the simplest ways possible. Americans understand simple narratives. And this is a fairly simple narrative. The rich and the poor have two completely separate standards. Okay? You kill a rich person in a position of power, no matter how much cruelty that they've subjected others to, you will have the book thrown at you. You kill a poor person, good luck if they even catch the fucking person. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Americans, they can, regardless of their lack of interest in developing class consciousness, this is a relatively simple instance of hypocrisy that they can understand, I think.
Pylon, that where the state court has already secured an indictment for murder in the first degree, having the federal court then jump in as well to add additional charges would, in some senses, be considered a pylon just because they already have such serious...
Terrible take? You think? Why do you think it's a terrible take? I wish people would just like explain why they think my takes are terrible. You have the opportunity to write out something more than just saying terrible take.
Charges against this person.
Just as an attorney, and how this seems to be changing, by the day. What are your thoughts on just this whole process? How much attention it's getting, and now just the multiple charges that we are learning about?
I think now that we're learning what the federal charges are, they differ greatly from that of the state court being murder, and there are specific defenses that come from that that I think Luigi Mangione might have been able to avail himself, especially because of this groundswell of people supporting him. We've seen high-profile cases in the past where it begs the question of hero or villain, and we've seen people divided. I would point to Daniel Penny being the most recent one, people being divided based on not necessarily the crime, but the situation that revolves around it. Now we have the case of Luigi Mangione, and I don't even think it's much of a division. So much of that is people's frustration with the medical insurance industry bleeding into a homicide case where people are not necessarily looking at the facts of, did he plan the murder? Did he do it? Was it premeditated? They're looking at it as a point of, I'm frustrated with the medical industry, and they are championing Luigi Mangione to some extent. And I say that as an interesting aspect only because at some point, 12 people are going to have to sit and hear this case, and that could be somewhat of an influential factor in determining guilt or innocence.
Yeah, we should point out, as we do have this conversation, which is an important conversation to have, that he wasn't even covered by United Healthcare. And that was one of the surprises, Brian, that we learned as we continued to cover this story. By the way, we are looking at live pictures now. It really is fascinating as here we are talking about the groundswell of support for Mangione, and not, not over the crime, but the frustration with medical insurance. At the same time, look at the security, Brian, around him. I mean, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, almost a dozen members of law enforcement and federal officers all around him, giving him security.
I think how premeditated it was and how it was a legit assassinated the guy is why they're doing it. Don't think the skin color matters on this one. Wait, what? How premeditated it was, brother. There are direct instances of like vengeance killings, like revenge killings that take place in America. There's like, how many murders happen in America every year? Let's see. Crime trends in U.S. cities. Okay, I don't care. Come on. Yeah. Where is it? Where is the number? I just want to know how many fucking homicides have taken place in the United States of America in 2024. Please. Why is that so hard to answer, like, immediately? How many homicides in the U.S.? Okay, fast stats. Homicide. 24,849 homicides. Okay? 24,849 homicides. Firearm homicides is 19,651. This is one. How many of these acts were premeditated? How many of these acts, in your opinion, were premeditated instances of murder? And the reason why I gave you the Daniel Perry example is because Daniel Perry engaged in an act of premeditated murder. And he actually got away with it. He got pardoned. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, that was, no, not Penny, Daniel Perry. Daniel Perry in the state of Texas. Daniel Perry. And he was convicted. And he was put in prison. And then he was pardoned. He texted his friends that he was going to go to a Black Lives Matter protest and kill people. It's a different guy. Daniel Penny is the one in New York that choked and killed the homeless person. Daniel Perry is the BLM killer. Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, that wasn't this year, but But you have to recognize something here. Like, there are a shit ton of firearm homicides that take place in this country, and a good deal of them are premeditated. Some of them are vengeance killings. Some of them are revenge killings. A good deal of these firearm homicides are not necessarily just like done by poor people against other people. You know what I mean? Yeah, the guy that killed a man defending his disabled wife. Yes. So I'm not making an argument about Luigi Mangione and the color of his skin or anything. I'm not saying that at all. As a matter of fact, I'm making the exact opposite argument. I'm saying that he's a white dude and he's getting the book thrown at him. And I think you need to understand, like, this is not about whiteness at all. Daniel Perry also killed Daniel Perry in the state of Texas killed a white man. He was at a Black Lives Matter protest. His girlfriend is black, but he was a white man. He's a veteran. This absolutely is something that transcends beyond race. It's class. Before people make jokes about how, like, oh, well, Italians are not white, and that's why, you know, this is happening. Like, come on. If we're going to be very serious here. He's in cuffs because he's white. No, I think no. I think that the reception certainly changes. The dynamic certainly changes when you're like a wealthy, when you're a kid from a wealthy family and you're white, for sure. But I don't think the reason why they apprehended him like this is because he's white. They're perp walking him because they want to make an example out of him. And they want to make an example for those who look to him and say, I don't really care what he did. I don't really have an issue with what he did. They want to send a message to you and everybody else. You understand? And yes, Daniel Perry in Texas was absolutely premeditated. And not only was it premeditated, but like a jury of his peers considered it to be premeditated murder as well. He texted his friends that he was going to do it before he did it.
As he enters the courtroom.
Yeah, and that's a lot. I've had my fair share of extradition cases where a client is either going to a different state or coming from a different state, and this amount of security is not normal. I think it really lends itself to the nature of this case and the high level of publicity that comes from it as well.
So let's talk about federal executions as we continue to stay on these live pictures. It's interesting to note, by the way, when we remember when we first saw Mangione and how he was screaming at people as he was being taken into jail. When we first saw that he was caught and arrested, he's much more subdued, much calmer. The security around him incredibly intense, from the NYPD to the FBI. They are all the armed guards now bringing him into that van. And the fact that it is created, as you said, just this this national conversation, not only around the crime and how he did it, but the fact that he wasn't even insured by United Healthcare. And a lot of people did not know that at first. And so that sort of pivoted the conversation away from all this concentration on Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, and just this overall discussion, like you said, about frustration within healthcare. But now bringing it down to what he faces and that the federal charges.
Yeah, I don't think that people looked at the situation and go, oh, he wasn't covered by United Healthcare. Well, I guess I have a different interpretation over the anger and resentment and frustration I feel. Oh, he's not covered by United Healthcare. All right, never mind. I like my healthcare now. Like, who cares? The reasons as to why people are not immediately going tisk tisk, how dare he, has nothing to do with the dude himself. It has everything to do with how they interpret healthcare in this country and how what their experiences look like.
Open up the possibility of the death penalty. Federal executions are rare, right? There's only been, what, a dozen to 16 federal executions since the 70s, the early 70s, but 13 of those apparently under President Trump. So now he's coming into office. You have this story that's dominating the headlines. How likely would it be that Mangione could actually receive the penalty and that it be carried out?
I think it's very unlikely for a number of reasons. One, the stat that you're reciting out to our viewers about the number of people who actually do face the death penalty. Does the fact that Donald Trump, the president-elect, soon to be president of the United States, will be in office, and we did see a groundswell of executions during his presidency, have an impact on that? Absolutely. But also, I think if you look at it from a geographic standpoint as well, the Southern District of New York encompasses Manhattan.
Terry Austin, I want to bring you in as well, former trial attorney and legal analyst. Just listening to the conversation I was having with Brian there, your thoughts as an attorney, as a legal analyst who has covered so many murder cases with us. What do you think, why do you think there is so much interest in this?
God damn this camera. They're trying to make this seem like it's a senseless killing of a rich guy conducted by a leftist extremist terrorist. That's what this is. It's a way to try and control. It's basically a desperate attempt to try and control the narrative because of how terrified people are about the broad positive reception in a country where the broad majority of Americans actually have a very simple understanding of crime and punishment. Normally, it's very black and white. There is no celebrating a guy who kills a fucking guy in broad daylight. You know, there is no, like, people immediately go, no, this is completely fucked up, completely unacceptable. So the very fact that wasn't the immediate reaction, I think that's what's terrifying those in positions of power.
Case and in Luigi Mangione and in this conversation around medical insurance, the frustration with medical insurance and just the groundswell of support that he is getting. And I should point out, not about the crime that was committed. We should never support murder, but just the frustration that has been brought out since Mangione allegedly committed this crime, and of course, this so-called manifesto that he had written.
Exactly. This is the type of case I think that the society wants to see, and that the prosecutions, both on the federal side and the state side, they want to make sure that they're focused in on this. I think as far as communities are concerned, they are frustrated and they are looking at the healthcare system as a failure here in the United States. But as you said, Kira, there is absolutely no excuse for murder here. And that's exactly what happened. It was someone who shot someone in the back, and it was someone who could have done other things. Louisiana is a smart person. Mangione, he is someone who has been educated. He is someone who really could have started a swell against the healthcare company, could have started a boycott, could have gotten many people behind him. And instead, he decided to take the law in his own hands. And we saw that Governor Hochul said, no, you cannot do this. The police commissioner said, we will not accept this in the state of New York. And so what you're seeing on the prosecutorial side is I'm
going to boycott private health care by dying. Yeah. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to boycott private health insurance by just fucking killing myself. Okay. We'll win big this way. This is so funny. Yeah, no, this is kind of at the heart of the problem, don't you think? It's just not really possible. You can't really boycott healthcare because without it, you fucking die. Okay? That's kind of the reason why a lot of people are mad at for-profit health insurance, as a matter of fact.
Firm backing of pursuing the
I'm confused as to why you have the belief that him killing the dude was justified, regardless of what the healthcare CO efforts were for better healthcare. Is it justifiable because the government and judicial systems are taking more interest because of who was targeted? Wait, what? I'm confused as to why you have to believe in him killing the dude was justified. Okay, I'm not making a broad declarative statement justifying Luigi Mangione's actions. I'm more interested in the reception of Luigi Mangione's actions by the general public, especially a general public that normally would be like, a killing is completely unacceptable, right? Most people, especially in the United States of America, think any kind of violence that is not dished out by the state is completely inappropriate and completely unacceptable. So why did Americans who normally have a very profound sense of justice and who are rather draconian not immediately fucking hit that button and instead chose to celebrate Luigi Mangione and think he is innocent, because he is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, by the way, just so you understand. Okay, I want you to understand something, chatters. You know, he allegedly. And that is because to the average individual who has been fucked over by healthcare, who's had their healthcare taken away from them, who's had their claims denied, claims that they basically paid for, by the way, that the insurance company makes money off of denying, even though they have no business denying said claims, that led to potentially a loved one dying, that's no different, okay? They see that as murder as well. And considering the universality of this cruelty, for every American from any different walks of life, that from even rich families all the way to poor families, that is precisely the reason why people see this act of revenge killing as not as inappropriate in the way that the media is presenting it. Do you see what I mean?
maximum penalty, both on the state side and the federal side. What I haven't seen is the fact that both state and federal are doing this at the same time. And it does look as though the federal case is going to proceed before the state case, but he's being brought in front of both courts. So it's going to be interesting to see how, in fact, this is handled on both levels.
What do you think?
What do you tell the dumbass? They say he came from a rich family. He's rich himself. He could have paid out of pocket. Yeah, I mean, what do you say to that? That's crazy. Yeah, rich is one thing. Having a spare, as a 26-year-old, having a spare, like, you know, $100,000 is entirely separate. Like, that's crazy. Hold on.
Are some of the challenges for prosecutors in a high-profile case like this?
Well, certainly on the state side, if in fact they proceed with both that murder one, murder two charge, and they've tied in the terrorism to that, that's going to be difficult. This is an individual who shot another individual. It's not what we commonly think of as a terrorist act. But what the prosecution, what Bragg said he wanted to do is, look, this person was trying to make a statement. He had, as you said, a manifesto. He was trying to say something about large corporations.
Also, it seems like he got a haircut when he was in prison, which is kind of crazy. I'm not hating it, but it does kind of feel like they're letting the boy do good PR for himself. I think even the perp walk makes him look cool. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Americans see that and they go, oh, this guy's a real fucking awful criminal. I hope he rots in prison or anything like that. But it's not, for me and this community at least, it doesn't seem like it's working.
and how unfair these large corporations are, particularly in the health industry. And so he's trying to make a statement. And I think on the state side, they will certainly pursue the social media that we saw, people coming out and supporting this defendant, when in fact he is someone who shot someone in cold blood. And I definitely think that the prosecution is going to look at what happened, and they're going to be able to at least try to tie in that terrorism, saying that it was intended to intimidate.
What do you want to say, Mayor, about the supporters of Luigi, wearing Luigi?
Let's see what the CNN coverage is right now.
Criminal complaint. Those federal charges include 2 counts on stalking, murder through use of a firearm, and a firearms offense. That's on top of the 11 state charges against him in New York, which include 1 count of first-degree murder, 2 counts of second-degree murder, one of which is charged as a killing in the act of terrorism. The federal criminal complaint also reveals new details about the notebook with alleged writings by Mangione that was found with him when police arrested him in Pennsylvania. John Miller is CNN's chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst, and he's been getting new information on this case, as well as CNN's Shimon Prokopez. I want to start, however, with CNN's Kara Scannell, who was in the New York federal courtroom where the suspect made his first appearance. Kara, tell us what played out in the hearing. When is the suspected CEO killer expected back in court?
So, Jake, this hearing took all of 15 minutes. And those images you saw of Luigi Mangione in that orange jumpsuit, well, he was changed into street clothes when he entered the courtroom surrounded by U.S. Marshals, wearing khakis, a white button-down shirt, and a navy shirt that went over it. He sat pretty silently during the hearing. The judge asked him if he understood his rights, if he understood what he was charged with. He said yes, both times, pretty briefly, kind of slender in nature. He was not, there were no outbursts like we had seen of him walking into the Pennsylvania court a few days ago. But his lawyer did raise a few questions, saying that in her 30 years as a prosecutor and a defense lawyer, she had never seen this highly unusual situation where Mangione is facing state charges and then suddenly today also having federal charges unsealed. His attorney, Karen Friedman-Agnifilo, said that she was told to appear in state court today at 2 p.m. and then had to reverse and come here instead to represent him for these federal charges. She also said that she had some questions because the charges she thought were in conflict, the state charging Mangione with murder with the intent to cause terror and these federal charges with stalking. So she's trying to raise issues here that they could be conflicting theories of the case and questioning whether and to what extent at all if the state and federal prosecutors were cooperating. The judge suggested this was not the time to address those issues. The prosecutor also agreed, and so Mangione was detained. He's not expected back in court until mid-January, but an indictment is likely to come before then, and then he will appear in court and enter a plea on that indictment. For now, the Mangione will be spending the night at the Metropolitan Detention Center. That is also where Sean Diddy Combs is, and as Mangione shares an attorney because Karen Friedman-Agnifilo's husband, Mark Agnifilo, is also working on this case. He was in court today, and he's representing Diddy, who has pleaded not guilty to those charges. Jake?
Shimon, it was stunning to see the large security presence surrounding Mangione when he arrived in New York. I mean, even New York City Mayor Adams was there for some reason.
Yeah. I've never seen something like that, right? I've been covering crime here in New York City for probably over 20 years now. It was really striking to watch all of this unfold and the way in which it unfolded from an NYPD plane being used to transport a prisoner who's being extradited to 2 NYPD helicopters, right? They had 2 NYPD helicopters waiting for him at the airport in Long Island where the plane landed, and then they transported him to the heliport on Wall Street, and then we saw that long walk of Mangione surrounded by NYPD detectives, FBI agents, and then you saw the officers with the long guns, bulletproof vests, and just that large crowd of law enforcement officials around him greeting him as he is stepping off that helicopter. And standing there was the mayor and the police commissioner and the chief of detectives. Really unprecedented. And it just tells you all of the hoopla, right? All of the celebrity-ish kind of the way in which this case and what this story has become. And in all of this, right, we can't forget that there was a victim here who was assassinated on the streets of Manhattan. But now this case is like taking on this new life, and really you're seeing some of that. Look, there are certainly security concerns over Mangione, and you can understand some of that. But really, when you look at how all of this unfolded and how everything happened today, this is one for the history books, and I think the NYPD knows that, and having that shot and having that long walk is something that, you know, is going to be in movies and documentaries for quite some time.
John, what did you make of the amount of security? Did it seem excessive to you?
Well, I don't think it's excessive in the idea that in most of these cases where you have somebody in custody, sometimes you'll see them put a bulletproof vest on the suspect because they think, you know, he may be attacked by someone who's upset by what he's accused of. In this case, it's the other way around. The level of security, the fact that emergency service unit officers with long guns, motorcycle outriders to clear the route, multiple people.
I feel like things are getting crazy.
Was because they are worried about the incredible amounts of support that Mangione has garnered online as an anti-hero, and that people might try to free him in that his arrival time and route were now pretty well known. I think beyond that, though, there is the reality, which is this was a case that gripped the city, and I think the NYPD also wanted to demonstrate he's in custody, he's in our custody, he's in the FBI's custody, which is why I believe the mayor was also there to show the public the case is solved and that they acted directly and quickly.
All right, John Miller, Kara Scannell, Shimon Prokopez, thanks to all of you. The case and its charges are not common. Do the federal charges amount to this defendant being charged twice for the same crime? We're going to talk about double jeopardy next, and we're going to go back to Capitol Hill. Is there, in fact, a deal?
Yeah, I feel like Perp Wagenham wasn't the smartest choice. I don't think this was a good idea. It ends up lionizing him further. And it makes him look like a hero, a martyr. I don't know. I just don't think that like Americans have the capacity to recognize what's going on broadly. And implement changes, demand changes. But it doesn't seem like our institutions are going to do anything and only increase their mechanisms of apprehension and suppression. Like this kind of perp walk is a flex to be like, oh yeah, you like this guy? He's a fucking terrorist. We're gonna kill him. We're gonna give him the goddamn death penalty at the federal level. We're gonna execute his ass. How dare you? How dare you touch a CEO? You know, a person that is actually of notoriety and worth in American society. You've done nothing. You're a scum. You're a piece of shit. You're a scumbag. Anyway.
Costumes, supporters of Luigi across the country.
The beauty of this country is that you have the right to protest the right. And those who are protesting when someone used violence to solve a problem, we saw that on the school ground as well. It sends the wrong message. A person that uses a gun to solve a concern, if it's on a school campus or on our streets, there are mechanisms in this country on how to organize on those issues of concern. We saw young people who were tired of shootings on school ground. They organized and pushed Congress to do weapon bans. That is how we do it here. We don't use a gun. And anyone that celebrates that, it is vile and it is sending the wrong message, and you're celebrating using violence to solve an issue.
Yeah. Only the police get to do that, sir.
Let's discuss with our panel. We have CNN legal analyst Joey Jackson, a criminal defense attorney. Oh my God,
they're talking about jury nullification. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah, Eric Adams, by the way, is probably going to get pardoned for his many crimes while he was in office. So that's also cool as well. Daily Mail's a good video with some protesters.
Protesters are starting to line up out here to show support for the 26-year-old and bring attention to what they say is the injustice of the U.S. healthcare system.
Luigi has freed our minds and
And we need to free Luigi.
Luigi Mangione is on his way to the New York criminal courthouse right now. He agreed to be extradited here to face murder charges.
The claim that this is an act of terror is absolutely absurd, and it goes to show how afraid this 1% is of us, the people, making change that actually benefits the 99%.
Are there methods I think the NYPD has shown if workers say like Amazon protests, those methods don't work? Yeah. A CEO that allegedly defrauded firefighters out of their pension. So if you can survive a coverage denial, he takes your pension. Yeah. That part is also pretty funny whenever they talk about like, well, you know, you're supposed to protest. You're supposed to get the government to take action. It's like, okay, that's what we're demanding. That's what I'm demanding. I'm not fucking saying that like, you know, the way to solve this problem is by just like killing every healthcare CEO. I think that's fucking idiotic. That's not going to change because guess what? CEOs, contrary to popular opinion, are infinitely replaceable. Okay? It's just the guy pushing the button over and over again. The murder machine button is just a guy. And finding new and unique ways to you know, heighten the cruelty at the behest of the profit motive. So, you know, you can, it's the system that needs to change. Is fundamentally broken. That's what I'm saying. And yet nobody wants to hear that out either. So what is the expectation here as you keep, you know, as you keep crushing average people over and over again every single day? Like what's expected to happen?
Attorney, retired New York Police Detective Michael Alcazar, now an adjunct professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, and CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Honig, a former state and federal prosecutor. Thank you all for being with us. Ellie, first I want to go to you because you know this courthouse extremely well. Give us an idea of what it actually looks like since cameras aren't allowed inside.
Yeah, Boris, I spent many hours and days inside this courthouse. So what's happening today, what will happen shortly, is an arraignment. So before that, Luigi Mangione is going through some basic processing through the court officers, through the marshals. They'll take his prints. They'll ask him some basic questions. When the court proceeding is ready, he'll be walked into what we call magistrate's court. Now, if you're trying to envision this, it's not the sort of soaring, ornate federal courtroom where most trials happen. This is sort of a unglamorous, dingier courtroom. The ceiling's lower, it's darker, it's smaller, and usually it's just used as a place for sort of initial processing. So Mangione will sit at his table with his lawyer, Karen Friedman Agnifilo, by his side. The prosecutors for the SDNY will be at the other table. The judge will essentially say, Mr. Mangione, you've been charged by complaint. Have you seen the complaint? Have you gone through it with your lawyer? He'll say yes. The judge may ask, how do you plead? If that question gets asked, he will say, I plead not guilty. Do you have a lawyer? Mangione will say, yes, I do. This is the person sitting right next to me. And then the judge will say to the lawyer, do you want to make a motion on bail here? Meaning, do you want to ask for bail? He might ask for bail. Karen Friedman Agnifilo might ask for bail for him, but that's just to put on a show. There's zero chance that he gets bail. And then from that point, the prosecutors, the federal prosecutors, will have 30 days under the rule, and under some readings, 20. It sort of depends on the nuances here, but 20 to 30 days to go to a grand jury and get an indictment. At that point, the case will be assigned to a district judge and will be underway in the familiar, normal criminal process.
And Joey, just explain to our viewers these federal charges versus the state charges.
Yeah, so Brianna and Boris, the federal government has what's called concurrent jurisdiction. What that means in English is that the state can charge, and they have. They've indicted him in the 11 counts, which we've talked a lot about, including first-degree murder, second-degree murder, a number of gun charges, etc. The state has done that. However, the federal government also has the jurisdiction to charge, and they have done so. If you look at the distinction in the actual criminal complaint in federal court between the indictment, what I would say is this. In the state court case in which he faces life without parole based upon the terrorism charge, it's a bare bones indictment, just alleging enough to get you to the standards of which are charged as it relates to the murders, as it relates to the gun, etc. However, if you look at the federal complaint, it's what we call it's not even a speaking indictment. It is a singing, screaming indictment. What's the difference? Criminal complaint, not yet been indicted. What I'm saying is that generally it lays out probable cause to believe he's committed one of the 4 offenses in which he's charged. This lays out chapter and verse, a timeline with respect to the plotting and planning, right? Given many days before. It lays out a number of pictures, not only of him, of the gray backpack, of the weapon, of the silencer. It gives you what he was doing. It talks about the manifesto. It talks about the federal, what he was saying in terms of to the feds and listing that out. And so it really is specific in detail with regard to what he has allegedly done, how he has done it, the process he has followed in doing it. And of course, the major distinction, because the defense counsel has said in great advocacy that, hey, you know, it's double jeopardy and it's piling on. Federal government has a role here, and it's not double jeopardy to the extent that the nature of the charges are different, right? The course of conduct you have to prove is different. And at the end of the day, the fact is that in federal, right, you have the death penalty. In state court, you don't. A major distinction. Last point, and that is Ellie described the magistrate, and, you know, it's not as ornate as these federal courthouses, which are beautiful, but compared to state court, that magistrate court is paradise. I mean, it's a lot different from a state perspective, but it just goes to show your level of perspective. You know, Ellie Honig being a seasoned federal prosecutor, I spent my time in state court, so when I go into federal courts, it's in awe, right? Where it's so that's a distinction in terms of the layout and the look, at least.
Michael, I want to ask you about one aspect to what Joey was just describing, and that is the fact that this is a singing or screaming complaint, soon to be indictment. That's in large part because of the amount of evidence that investigators have gathered here, what they found on Mangione when he was apprehended in Altoona. I do wonder how you see federal investigators working with the NYPD and what New York detectives have gathered. Do they basically just pick up from what they have, or do they then, these federal investigators, have to start their own investigation?
I think the feds are going to start their own investigation. Of course, they're going to look at the information that's being shared with them by the NYPD, but they're going to do their due diligence, do their own investigation, look at all the evidence. I mean, there's a wealth of evidence here. What the NYPD recovered at the crime scene, the gun on Mangione, the bullets at the crime scene that now match, the DNA evidence on the bottle, the water bottle, and on the phone. His manifesto, his fingerprints on the manifesto on the scene. So it's gonna be a.
Why does every cop sound like this? Every cop sounds like a Batman villain, like a thug from Batman. Oh, it's the bat. They planted a water bottle. We found a water bottle. It's like, dude, I swear to God, there's like a cop accent in New York, in the tri-state area in general. They're all henchman coded. It's the bat. Get over here now. Yes, it's called Staten Island. I know. New York not beating the Gotham allegations.
A joint effort, but I believe the feds will conduct their own investigation and then compare what they have with the NYPD.
And Ellie, if you could just talk about how the death penalty relates to the federal charge here and why this would be a candidate for the feds to pursue it.
Yeah, so big issue to watch here in the coming weeks and months. Just to be clear,
I think it's really funny that they're writing articles like this one. Luigi Mangione, prosecutors have a jury problem. So much sympathy. Like, if his crime was so severe, so consequential, I feel like this wouldn't be an issue. You know what I mean? Unless they pack the jury with CEOs only. You know what I mean? He has to be convicted not by a jury of his peers, but a jury of the peers of the victim in this situation. They're like, oh, you're not a CEO, you're out. And even then, it's kind of funny because CEOs also don't like healthcare. They can't just be CEOs. They have to be CEOs that are directly in the healthcare industry, because virtually every other person Virtually every other person in American society has been fucked over by healthcare in a meaningful fashion. That will definitely play a role in the way that they operate, in the way that they look at Luigi Mangione's actions.
New York state law does not have a death penalty. So in the state case, the most that Luigi Mangione could be sentenced to is life in prison. But here in the federal court, which we're looking at here on the screen, one of the charges against...
Like, remember, Brian Thompson had a LinkedIn post about, like, fixing healthcare or whatever a couple of years ago. And I remember looking at the replies on that LinkedIn post from other CEOs, okay? Other CEOs replying to Brian Thompson going, you're a fucking piece of shit. Like, your company has ruined my life, okay? So he wasn't even getting play on LinkedIn. That's like the one space where every CEO's got to be like, you know, I understand your job. I mean, you have a fiduciary responsibility to your shareholders to improve profit margins year over year. It's like just remember, yeah. This is the reply from a year ago from other CEOs on LinkedIn. Founder and CEO of Bye Bye Dog Breath, Brian Thompson. This seems like a laudable mission, but United Health Group is failing my mother by not providing her basic care. Campaign director at Colorado Reproductive. You are doing a great job cutting your costs. Branch managers. Hey, Brian, I just spent an hour on the phone battling to get general information from my wife with stage 4 cancer. She's a 45-year-old mother with 4. Replies to a second to last post on LinkedIn 2 years ago. Chair of pathology at SUNY Downstate. United Healthcare terminated my 86-year-old mother's Medicare Advantage plan with no notice. 3-time cancer warrior currently fighting, says Lisa Galecki. I've had UHC for the last several years. I have stage 4 metastatic lung cancer. We've just left UHC because of all the denials for my meds. Every month there is a different reason for the denial. As of today, we are well over our max out of pocket for the year with having spent well over $20,000. Pat Seeger, starting grand retirement. I'm curious, money in whose pockets? It seems members are not the primary recipients when the ratio of the CEO to median employee pay is 30-1. You seriously think United Healthcare is lowering drug prices? Does Optum spread price? They sure do, which is quite literally raising the cost of drugs. Thanks. For the average person who's getting fucked over by a for-profit healthcare company, Brian Thompson and many others like him are the fucking Grim Reaper, okay? It does not matter how systematized that destruction and death is, right? How normal it is, how normalized it is, how there is a division of responsibility. Many people factor into this equation. And it is done not to like harm people, not to hurt people directly, but instead for the profit motive, right? But it does not matter. If a family member of yours is fucked over, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter if you are a fucking CEO yourself. They look at a guy like that as a death dealer, okay? And it's truly unique because Americans under every other circumstance are predisposed to the, well, they're just doing their jobs attitude. Okay? It is ingrained in the American public consciousness. They are very draconian in the way that they approach crime and punishment. But when you are harmed in a meaningful way, whether it be a tremendous amount of financial strife brought about by a company that only makes money when they just get your money, when they take your money and then don't give you back any of the money that you need when in your worst moment, okay? To them, it doesn't matter. There are Americans are extremely individualistic people, okay? I didn't put anything in my mouth. I was ripping the sticky stuff off the Zyn. Americans are hyper individualists. They're very selfish. But even a selfish person could, if the harm is so universalized, you're gonna encounter enough selfish people that have been harmed. Okay? And that's where we're at right now.
Luigi Mangione can potentially be punished by the death penalty. Now, there's a process here. DOJ first has to go through its internal process. If you're the prosecutor on this case, you have to write a memo that goes down to the Attorney General's office in D.C. where you recommend we should or should not seek the death penalty. Then the AG and his people in D.C. will review that. And if the decision comes back, yes, we are going to seek the death penalty, then that's the case. But DOJ does not always seek the death penalty in all death-eligible cases. The kind of things you look at are just how heinous was the crime, what's the nature of the crime, how premeditated was it, how many victims were there, are there larger societal needs here, deterrence, rehabilitation, that kind of thing, that would weigh for or against the death penalty. So that process usually takes weeks or months to play out. But important to notice, there's going to be a big difference when the Trump administration takes over DOJ in 3 weeks. I mean, Donald Trump's DOJ was way more aggressive during his first term in imposing the death penalty, certainly than recent Democratic administrations have been. Biden administration has sought death penalty in 2 cases, 2 mass shootings. But I think the chances of a death penalty being sought here are going to go up when Donald Trump's sworn in, when his DOJ takes over in January.
Joey, I want to pick up on something we spoke about yesterday when discussing this Mangione case, and that is the idea of jury nullification being a potential factor. That is, the jury essentially deciding that this person may have committed the act that they're accused of, but that on the greater whole, it would be unjust for them to face a sentence effectively. And you can correct me if I'm misrepresenting jury nullification, but I wonder how that now potentially applies to federal charges.
Yeah, Boris, indeed. I mean, I think most people would be screaming at the screen, and probably are, right? And saying, jury nullification, what are you talking about? He's guilty. Look at this evidence. Look, have you not seen the criminal complaint here in federal court where it lays out chapter and verse? He's on his bicycle. It talks about the manifesto. It talks about to the feds. He's guilty even looking at this. Not so fast. Obviously, you have the presumption of innocence. However, from all public indications, the evidence is really strong. The reason we're here talking about, at least you raise the issue of jury nullification, is we've seen social media. I have never, right, and I'd be curious to know if Ellie has ever seen a case like this where social media really is calling him a hero. He's being called St. Luigi. They're selling T-shirts with angels on them. They're selling trinkets for Christmas. People on social.
I mean, we are just principled believers in the standard that you are not guilty until you are proven guilty, okay? You are innocent until proven guilty by a jury of your peers, okay? That's all I'm saying. All I'm saying is, free Luigi, he is innocent until proven guilty. I think he should walk free. I do not feel unsafe if he was free to roam the streets. As a matter of fact, I feel less safe that he is not allowed. Okay? I saw a clip of you in a documentary a couple days ago. Tell me what the documentary is and we'll look at it. If Trump says he can get away, if he can shoot someone in the middle of 5th Street and get away with it, why shouldn't my man Luigi? You're innocent until you do something wrong, not just something illegal. I would feel safer if Luigi was allowed to roam the streets freely. I feel unsafe because I see this unjust punishment being dished out against this man who I don't think is guilty. I don't know. I mean, was he really the guy? Do we know? I'm not convinced. I am not convinced.
Social media is saying, hey, it should have been me to do this. It should have happened before. It should happen again. It's insane. And so why is that relevant? Why is public perception relevant? Why am I talking about social media? Because we're talking about a jury pool now. Of course, the Southern District's jury pool, a lot different from a Manhattan jury pool to the extent that it's more, right? It's a broader area that you have to cover. And I don't know whether that's better or worse with respect to the number of people who are going to be there, the number of people evaluating. Now, I should also say very briefly that you select a jury. And if there's jurors who say, I hate the healthcare system, I hate government, I don't like anybody, most of all you, defense attorney, and you, prosecutor, whatever, you excuse them. They're called challenges for cause. But you have a limited number of people who are ultimately, right, going to be on that jury. And those are the people you agree to. But people are people. They have visions, they have emotions, they have perspectives. Will they say, you know what? Wow, this is long overdue. That's something to look for with regard to a hung jury, with regard to a jury that nullifies. I don't know that they will, but if ever there was a case, right, where it would be a jury that would nullify, and last point, look at the last election. The public has spoken with regard to what they feel about the government, with regard to what they feel about the country and the direction it's heading, the distrust of government, just the feelings overall about politics. They wanted someone in the office who could just be a norm breaker. I'm looking for that as it relates to this case, to be sure.
The man accused of assassinating...
All right. I am going to... Isn't it extremely odd that jury nullification entered public discourse? Is the TV trying to jury poison the common viewers to find 12 people who don't know about the story at all? I'm just shocked. I'm just shocked that they're even bringing this up. Remind all potential jurors to act as right-wing as possible so they can do the funniest thing. All I'm saying is, if I'm sitting in that room, okay, as a resident of New York, as a New York voter, okay, I'm talking about, I'm trying to hit the center as perfectly as I can. I'm a systems defender. You can't actually say too aggressively that you love healthcare. You know what I mean? Because if you do that, then the defense team will cook you, right? The defense team will get you. The defense team will make sure that you're not sitting on that jury. So you always have is a delicate balance. You know, you have to be the most extreme centrist who thinks that like violence is inappropriate, and that you're oblivious to who this Luigi guy is. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, I don't know anything. Yeah, no, honest to God, have no idea. You know, have no opinions on this issue whatsoever. I'm fair and I'm balanced. I don't have any issues with CEOs in general. No issues whatsoever. And in terms of healthcare, you got to be like, you know, it's a cruel system, but it is what it is, right? We all live under it. Someone's got to make the money. Something along those lines, you know?